You're sitting in that waiting room, and time seems to suddenly stand still, as though the world outside has simply stopped existing. Your cat is lying in your arms, completely still, completely warm, completely close to you, and you already know this is the last time. The last time together, and nothing in the world truly prepares you for what that feels like. Many cat owners say the waiting was the hardest thing they had ever experienced in their entire lives, harder than the goodbye itself. Not the death itself, but the knowing beforehand, the sensing of its nearness, the quiet, desperate holding on. And then comes the question that keeps forcing itself back. Did I really do the right thing? But there's a second question that almost no one dares to ask out loud in that moment. How do I truly say goodbye to her? How do I take leave in the right, dignified, loving way? And the answer to that might touch you more deeply than you expect right now, in this moment. Because saying goodbye is not one single, clear action, but a long and deeply personal process. And that process can heal, it really can heal, or it can quietly keep the wound open for months. In this video, we talk about something almost no one openly discusses, the rituals that truly and deeply help. The small, intentional actions that allow your soul to let go without forgetting what was loved. And at the end, I will tell you something that most people never hear after saying goodbye to their animal. Imagine you lived for 12 years with a being who made your home feel alive and warm, who sat every morning next to your coffee cup and looked at you drowsily with half-closed eyes, who knew exactly when you were sad before you had even noticed or admitted it yourself. And now that chair is empty, and that spot on the couch is quiet, and it will stay that way. That is not a small loss. That is a real, deep crack in the very structure of your daily life. And yet many grieving people hear these 4 words from the outside, words that cut like needles. It was just a cat. These 4 words are among the cruelest things you can say to someone in deep grief. Because you know very well that it was not just a cat, it was a real, grown relationship full of depth. It was lived trust, unconditional loyalty, a quiet and natural daily presence. And what you feel right now has a name and deserves a place. It is real, complete grief. Researchers at the University of Minnesota have shown that grief over an animal activates the same brain regions as grief over a human. The same intensity, the same pattern, the same measurable pain. Your pain is not exaggerated, not inappropriate, not childish. It is completely valid. But here comes the part that most people never want to address. What happens to the pain when you find no way to truly and fully say goodbye? It stays, it settles deep inside you. It surfaces unexpectedly when you least expect it. At the first sound of a cat flap somewhere, at the opening of a can of tuna alone in the kitchen in the evening. At the sight of the empty space beside your pillow, her spot, every single night, without exception. And that is exactly why intentional rituals are so incredibly important and so healing for human grief. What is a ritual, in the deepest and oldest human sense? A conscious action with meaning. An action that gives a moment form, weight, dignity, and in doing so makes processing possible. Because without ritual, death remains diffuse and intangible. With a ritual, it gets a concrete form, a clear beginning, and a possible, dignified end. Today I'm sharing with you 6 rituals that actually help, that truly carry people through grief. Not because they take away the pain, but because they give it an honest, visible place. The first ritual begins even before you walk through the door of the vet clinic, and it is simpler than you think. It's called the last hour, and all it requires is time and your full presence with her. If at all possible, give yourself a whole, undisturbed hour with just your cat on her last day. No phone, no conversation with others, no distractions from outside, just the 2 of you, completely together. Let her lie in the place she loved the most, and always chose on her own within your home. Stroke her the way she always liked it, exactly like that, not differently, familiar and natural and close. Talk to her if you can, not words of farewell, but ordinary words from your everyday life together. Because the everyday life you shared was the real gift, the ordinary moments that were extraordinary. But here is something many cat owners don't know and therefore unknowingly underestimate in this moment. Your cat reads your breathing. She reads your body tension, your inner calm or unrest, and in this last moment, you can give her the greatest gift. Not words, not tears, but your own inner peace, your deep, calm, and conscious presence. Your body sends her direct signals, and your peace will become fully and truly her peace in this moment. If she leaves in this state, she leaves not in fear, not in turmoil, but in deep, familiar stillness. That is not a small thing. That is the greatest and most dignified thing you can do for her in this moment. The second ritual is the ritual of words, and by that I don't mean a perfect or complete speech. Write her a letter, before the goodbye, after, or simply both times in a row, without any plan. Write down everything you were never able to put into real spoken words over all those years together. Thank her for the nights she lay beside you when you couldn't sleep and you were alone. Thank her for the way she looked at you, as if you were the most important thing in the entire world. The scratching at the bathroom door, the purring that woke you from sleep early in the morning. These words don't need to be beautiful. They don't need to be complete or perfect. They just need to be true. Why does a letter help? Because it gives the diffuse, boundless pain a clear and tangible form. Grief that circles unspoken in your head has no boundaries. You read the letter once, cry, fold it up, and you know. It has been said, it is real. Some people keep this letter, some burn it. Both are completely right and good. I want to pause here for a moment, because there is something I need to address directly and honestly. Many people who have had a cat put to sleep struggle for weeks afterward with real, heavy feelings of guilt. Did I decide too soon? Should I have waited longer? Was this truly the right thing for her? And I want to say something to you now that you may know in your head, but not yet believe deep in your heart. If you genuinely cared for your cat, if you spoke with a vet and weighed your options carefully, if you truly and honestly considered her quality of life, then you did the most right thing a human being can possibly do for a dependent living creature. You ended her suffering before it could become unbearable. That is not failure. That is love in its purest, most courageous form. The third ritual is called the memory box, and it is simpler and more healing than you might think right now. A photo, her favorite toy, her collar, the small cushion she always lay on. Place these things together in a box or a basket, in a spot that truly belongs to her. This box is not a sign of inability, it is respect. It says, this being existed, and this life had real, lasting meaning. Letting go does not mean forgetting. Letting go truly means integrating, completely and permanently. It means building the loss into your life, without it paralyzing and destroying you each day anew. And with time, the pain changes when you look at the box. It becomes softer, warmer, more grateful. The fourth ritual is the one most people forget or dismiss as unimportant, the ritual of silence. Let the silence in consciously. Don't remove her bowl immediately after the goodbye with a sudden, abrupt motion. Let her cushion stay right where it always was, for 1, 2, 3 days, exactly as always. Not because you're living in denial, but because your body and your heart truly need time for this. Every abrupt change in the space immediately signals the brain. It is over, but your heart is not yet ready to receive and release that signal. When you clear things away because you are inwardly ready, then it is a dignified and conscious closing for you. Suppressed grief always comes back. Processed grief stays and slowly transforms. The fifth ritual is the ritual of telling, and it is simpler and more important than you might think. Find one single person you can tell about her. Just one is enough. Truly, just one. Tell them who your cat really was, not in general, but very concretely, vividly, and honestly. The way she climbed into your lap during a thunderstorm and held on tightly, warm and heavy. The strange habit of suddenly purring and kneading at certain music over and over again. These concrete stories keep the being alive, in you and in the person you're telling. Because what we can turn into stories, we can understand, carry, and continue to live with every day. The sixth ritual is the hardest of all, but also the most important and deepest of them all. It is called giving yourself permission, fully and honestly, to grieve for as long as your heart needs, without conditions and without expectations from outside. Grief is not a sign of weakness. It is the direct, honest measure of your love for her. The greater the love was, the greater the gap she inevitably and necessarily leaves behind. Your pain is yours. It is exactly as big as it is, and it is completely valid and real. And then, one day, something strange and at the same time beautiful happens, something you cannot force. You open the window in the morning and think, she would have loved this warm, golden light so much. You see a cat on the street and smile quietly to yourself, instead of immediately dissolving into tears. You drink your coffee and remember how she sat beside you, and it is warm, not only painful. That is not the end of grief. That is the beginning of real, living integration of the loss. In Japan, there is a tradition called kyu, a quiet ceremony for beloved losses, which applies not only to people, but also to animals and objects that meant a life. A moment in which you say, "You were here, you had meaning, you will not be forgotten." Many cat owners in the English-speaking world develop similar rituals, often without consciously knowing or naming what they're doing. A small stone in the garden, a little plant on the windowsill, a candle lit once a year on the anniversary. No animal replaces another. Every being is unique, unrepeatable, and unforgettable in life. You gave her 12, 15, or 18 years of your life, everyday food, warmth, attention, and a safe, loving home that was hers. The mutual bond between human and cat is one of the oldest and most beautiful in the world. And this bond does not end with death. It lives on, inside you, forever, quietly, and unbroken. On the day it happened, you gave her the only thing that true love can give in the end. You gave her peace, real, dignified, loving peace. And that is the most worthy ending that love in this world can have. When you go home tonight, and it is quiet, sit in the place where she always lay. Breathe deeply. Remember her. Let the grief be fully inside you, just like that, without resistance. That is not weakness. That is the greatest sign that you truly and deeply and completely loved. Write me in the comments, which ritual has truly helped you with saying goodbye. I read every single one. She is no longer here, but she was here. Completely real, completely whole, completely close to you. And that is, forever, more than enough.